Hello, everybody, and welcome to the introduction video for our second unit essay, our unit on freedom. As you know, the two questions that we're going to be answering, or one of the two questions, you don't have to answer both, is what does it mean to be free is the first one, or how can one person defend the rights of others or all other people? Now, in talking about introductions, and we've talked about this before because remember, this is not the first introduction that we have written. We wrote one for our fear essay. I like to describe a lot of what you shouldn't do rather than exactly what you should do, because there's just so many different things that you can do. But I will describe all the things you must do as well. Now, first and foremost, let's take a look at, hold on, let me present it to you. We have a worksheet, of course. You know I love a good worksheet. Here's our Unit 2 essay introduction worksheet. Now, here we go. A great idea, and I always say this for an introduction, is to not start talking or not start the paper with your thesis statement. What you would rather do is finish your introduction with your thesis statement. And your thesis statement is going to be something like, there are many things that one person can do in order to fight for the rights of all people, or there are many things that it means to be free. Now, you need to funnel yourself down to get to that major question, to that thematic question, right? Now, clearly, well, not clearly, but in my opinion, the easiest of the two essays would be the second one, right? How can one person defend the rights of all other people? And the reason why, for our purposes, I believe that's the easiest one is because, remember, we are going to use, and we have to use, the certain sources that we read throughout this marking period, throughout this unit. Now, the first source we're going to use, and that's going to be for the first body paragraph, will be Franklin Delano Roosevelt's For Freedom speech, right? And in that, you'll recall, he talks about what he thought it took to be free. That you had to be very strong, and you had to be very tough, and you had to fight for weak people, and you had to stand up against bully nations, right? Bad dictators. You also had JFK as our second source material. That's going to be for our second body paragraph, and that was from his inaugural address. And remember, in that, he talked about the Cold War and pretty much the same thing as FDR, that you needed to step up and you needed to, fight against tyrants and bad rulers and bad dictators. Our third source is going to be Malala, of course, from her speech at the United Nations. And that, of course, forget about it. Malala, she's an excellent example of what one person can do to stand up for freedom. And that is, of course, to, stand up against people, to risk yourself, to be courageous and bold, even in the face of danger. And then the last thing that you're going to do, or the last paragraph, body paragraph, is I'm going to ask you to use any person in history who has fought for the rights of other people. And you can choose that person, whether it be, Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or anybody. There's so many people that have fought for the freedoms for other people. Of course, and I'm going to say this now, an alternate idea for your fourth body paragraph, that you could use quotes from Raisin in the Sun, one or two quotes from Raisin in the Sun, to also help answer either of those two questions. But I'm going to go back to what I was saying. I would think that the second essay topic question would be easier. How can one person defend the rights of all others? Specifically because we have so many examples of singular people. So, each body paragraph is another person that you're describing. Well, how can one person do it? Take FDR, for example. He did this. Another way that you can do it is, look at what JFK did, and he did that, and Malala, she did that. But of course, you can flip that around and answer the first essay question when it says, what does it take to be free? Well, what it takes to be free is you need to stand up and fight and be courageous and bold in the face of danger, regardless of the consequences to yourself. And guess who provides us with great examples of that? Of course, FDR does, and JFK does, and Malala does, and whoever you choose to do, or the play A Raisin in the Sun shows you what it takes to be free, if you would just consider the following quote. So for you make your decision upon which one you want to answer, but in both papers, you're still going to give me a quote from FDR in the first paragraph, JFK in the second, Malala in the third, and any person or Raisin in the Sun in the fourth. Now, when it comes, again, back to the introduction, you need to funnel yourself down to that topic, whichever one you have chosen to do. So just talk about freedom in general. What does freedom mean? What does it mean to be free? How can you be free? Do you need laws to be free? Do you need people to ensure freedom? Do you have to fight for your freedom? Is a military necessarily involved for freedom? Who deserves to be free? In fact, let me show you one idea. Another thing that you have done for me, I'm going to present this to you right now, is our freedom questionnaire. Now, you've done this for me already. You did this for me either yesterday or the day before. And the cool thing, or even today possibly, the cool thing about the freedom questionnaire is every one of these 11 questions could be used as a springboard or a jumping point for your introduction. So look at number one: is everyone around the globe free? The answer to that is no. And that's a really great way to start this essay. Not everybody around the globe is free. Boom, period. And then you just elaborate on that. There are several countries where people are held in slavery, or where they're not allowed to speak what they want, or they're not allowed to speak against the government, or they're not allowed to show their faces or their hair, or they're not allowed to speak in public, or they're not allowed to drive if they're a female. You could go through all these things, and then you could finish that off by one thing that needs to happen, though, in order for there to be freedom around the globe, is you need somebody to stand up and fight for that freedom. And there's your theme. Or flip it around to the other one. What does it take to make these countries free? And then that answers your question. And then you just go right in your first paragraph, your first body paragraph. Well, one of the things that it takes to make people around the globe free is you need people to stand up and blah, blah, blah. And then you talk about FDR. So that's just number one. That's just answering, is everyone around the globe free? Talk about that for a paragraph. How about number two? How long have people been fighting for their freedom? That's a great jumping off point. People have been fighting for their freedom since the world has begun. Right? People have been fighting for their right to speak, for their right to religion, for their right to marry who they want, for their right to have the jobs that they want. Talk about that for a paragraph, and then finish off by saying, well, certain people in the world have known that you have to fight for your freedom. And those people include JFK, FDR, and Malala, to name a few. Who deserves to be free? It's another great question that could be answered. Everybody around the globe deserves to be free, period. That's how you start off that paragraph. Now, that's not a paragraph. You're going to have to talk about more about that. Old people, young people, women, men, no matter what your sex or your nationality, your race or your religion, everybody deserves to be free. So you talk about that for a paragraph. And then you finish off by saying, and there have been people in the world who have understood what it takes to fight for this freedom. Boom. Number four, I always say that, who deserves to be free? Or why do people deserve to be free? That's a great question to answer in a paragraph. Look at five. What does not being free do to people? That's a great way. If people are not free, bad things can happen, or they cannot be the best people that they can be. Or, you tell me what I don't want to write their introduction for you. You tell me, what does not being free do to people? Explain that to us. Heck, a great example would, of course, be Walter Lee from Raisin in the Sun. We have a fabulous example, and you can talk about that a little bit in your introduction, about dreams being deferred and what that does to people. It causes them to be angry at themselves and their family and the people around them and act out. 6, what is needed for there to be freedom in society? Now, that's a great question. There are many, and that could be, you could start off your paragraph by that. What does it take for there to be freedom in society? There are many things. Or you could start off this way. There are many things that need to be accomplished for there to be true freedom in a society. And let's go back to our two questions. What does it mean to be free? Well, you need to have these things to do it. Or you need to have certain people step up and fight for it. So without going through all these things, because again, there's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Is freedom worth fighting for? I'm going to do another one. It's a great way to start your essay. Freedom is something that is definitely worth fighting for. Bam! For centuries, people have been fighting for freedom, from way back to the American Revolution all the way today in social justice fights. People are fighting for their freedoms, right? To be able to have economic freedom or religious freedom. There's so many ways that you can go with this. It's really quite awesome. Now, again, you do want to finish your paragraph by funneling it down to your main thesis, which is either that, that there are certain things that people can do, or there is a way for one person to fight for everybody's freedom. And there's examples of them throughout history, or of course that there are many things needed to be done in order to be free. And then of course your paper's already basically written for you because you already have your quotes ready to go. And you're going to say, consider the following quote. And this quote clearly shows, and this is important because. So today, let's just worry about our introduction. So let's go back, please, everybody, to our introduction worksheet. We've talked about your freedom, the funnel method, the first bullet, the second bullet, or you can use your freedom questionnaire. I just went through that. Each question is itself a great idea or launching point for your introduction. Just elaborate into a paragraph and then finish with your thesis statement. Remember, everybody, these are the don'ts now. Don't put any quotes in your introduction. Save all those quotes to use as evidence in the body of your paper. And you'll put your FDR quote in your body number 1, your JFK quote in your body number 2, your Malala quote in your body number 3, and your any famous freedom fighter quote in paragraph number 4, or something from Raisin in the Sun. Now, remember also no major details, right? You can and should mention that there have been a number of people throughout history who are courageous enough to stand up and fight for the rights of all people, regardless of the personal consequences, but just don't go into details. You don't even have to mention any names. You can mention their names, but don't go any further than that. You really don't need to. So throughout history, there have been a very few people who have had the courage and the chutzpah to stand up and fight for the freedoms of other people. They did this because they understood that people needed to blank, 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 and blank. Some of those people include JFK, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the brave Malala of the 21st century. That's the end of our paragraph. And then you go on. And then the next, you'll start your first body paragraph by saying one of those really brave people that stood up and fought for freedom was FDR, the whatever president of the United States. And in his speech that, he stood up and he explained what it took to be free. In fact, consider the following quote, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So no details, just general statements in this introduction. Now, again, nowhere in your intro are you going to tell me what you are going to do. In this paper, I am going to tell you, or you are going to learn. You don't tell people what you're going to do. You just do it. Imagine if you spoke that way. If you went up to somebody and somebody said, "Hey, Johnny, how you doing?" And you went, I pretend I'm Johnny. And I said, "Well, in this conversation, I'm going to tell you how I'm doing." That would be crazy talk. Or, "Hey, Johnny, how was that movie?" "Well, in this conversation, I'm going to tell you how the movie was that I saw yesterday." No, you just go right into it. The movie was great, or the movie stunk. All right, let's continue. Don't say what you're going to do. Don't say I'm going to describe it for you. I have described it. None of that. By the end of this essay, you will know. I will prove to you. You do not tell people what you're going to do. Just do it. And then lastly, don't say that you believe in your thesis. Instead, make it a statement of fact. So don't say, "I believe that one person can defend the rights of others." No, say it as a statement of fact. One person can defend the rights of others. Perfect. So that's how we want to do an introduction. So again, no quotes, no real major details. All right. All you're going to do is talk about freedom for a paragraph, right? What's important about it, what you need to do it. And then you finish off with your thesis statement, either that it is one person can defend the rights of others, or there are many things it takes to be free. Everybody, great job. And you're going to do a great job on this essay because you've already done all the hard work. And that was doing all your reading your sources, doing your citations, your annotations, and then thinking about it. And now we'll just put it all together. Great job. Thanks a lot.